So I was telling you about the latest novels of Margaret Atwood. Please do read Penelope and The Testaments. The Testaments, I forgot to tell you, is the second part of The Handmaid's Tale. It is narrated by Aunt Lydia, a character in Handmaid's Tale. You should also look at Margaret Atwood's short story, Gertrude Talks Back, which is the story of Hamlet narrated from the perspective of Queen Gertrude. The next important writer is Michael Ondaatje. He is Sri Lankan Canadian and a very important writer these days. Michael Ondaatje writes in a postmodern style, combining the factual and the fictional. And he started his oeuvre with a major work, the collected works of Billy the Kid. It is a story of an outlaw. He followed it up with Coming Through Slaughter. It is a story of a jazz musician, Buddy Bolden. Then came the autobiographical novel Running in the Family. These are all novels of the 1970s. And 1982 is Running in the Family, followed by In the Skin of a Lion. In the Skin of a Lion is the story of immigrants. In 1992 came his major novel, The English Patient. And after that, there is Divisadero and The Cat's Table. The English Patient is set during the Second World War in an Italian villa where a group of people are trapped and they are like a microcosm of the world itself. There is a Canadian nurse, Hannah. There is a very badly burned man whom they call the English Patient, whom she is taking care of. And this man is actually not English, he is Hungarian, and his name is Count Ladislaw the Almasi. Then there is Hannah's father's friend, Caravaggio. There is an Indian zapper pilot, Kip or Kirpal Singh. This novel tells the story of Almasi, his love for Catherine Clifton, and how their love affair led to a plane crash where Catherine's husband tried to kill them all. And then he died and Catherine was badly burned and he couldn't save her. Almasi couldn't save her. And he was pursued by the English people at that time and they deliberately imprisoned him and destroyed his life. Months later, he had to come, when he came back to Catherine's remains, he was so desperate that he tried to kill himself in another plane crash. Caravaggio has lost both his limbs and it was Almasi who was responsible for it. And how can you take revenge on Almasi now? Caravaggio had always wanted to take revenge on his enemy. But in a war, there are no enemies. Everybody is a victim. The novel exposes the politics of war, the meaninglessness of war, the cruelty of war. You don't gain anything by war. That is the magnificent novel, The English Patient. Now I will talk to you about some other writers. Yann Martel, everybody knows, is the author of Life of Pi. It is the story of Pi Patel, who spent many days in almost a year in the Pacific Ocean in the company of a Bengal tiger. He has also written other major novels like Beatrice and Virgil. Hey, if you want to understand what is postmodernism, if you want to understand literary theory, read some of these novels. Beatrice and Virgil is a story of a monkey and a donkey. And it is a brilliant story that talks about how meanings are created. It's about language. It's about relationships. It's a very dense novel. There is another novelist, Lawrence Hill. Lawrence Hill has written Some Great Thing, his first novel, Any Known Blood. I confess, I don't know him directly. Now we have to talk about the native Canadian writers, starting from Thomas King. He was originally Native American and he emigrated to Canada, and his first major novel is Medicine River, first novel. A Coyote Columbus story, Green Grass Running Water, famous. Then Coyote Sings to the Moon, Truth and Bright Water, etc. are works by Thomas King. He reclaims the Native American past and brings alive Native American traditions. Maria Campbell is the author of Half-Breed. It's a major novel that has become a textbook in schools and colleges. Why are Native American novels relegated as textbooks and not considered mainstream literature? That is an important question. Maria Campbell's Half-Breed is her autobiography that recounts her story from a happy childhood in rural Saskatchewan to an adulthood of drugs and prostitution. Many Native women and men lived lives like that, very broken lives, and they have written about it. Janet Armstrong's Slash is the story of a Native American, Tommy Kalasket, who's renamed Slash, and he encounters a lot of intolerance in the school system and in the racist society, and he struggles to be proud of his Okanagan heritage. Slash by Janet Armstrong. She is the head of the Penticton reservation. Beatrice Culliton is a Métis author. Métis is half white, half native, and she is very famous for the novel In Search of April Rain Tree. In Search of April Rain Tree is the story of two sisters, April and Cheryl. They have a lot of hardships in their foster families, etc. April is fair-skinned and tries to pass off as white, while Cheryl is proud of her native heritage and she becomes an activist. But it's not easy to be an activist. She's raped and she has a child. Later she dies. And April later comes to realize how hard her sister's life was. And she takes up her fifth sister's activism. One novel I missed out, but I didn't quite miss out because he's a diasporic writer, I thought I'll put him at the end. It is Rohinton Mistry. Rohinton Mistry is a Parsi Indo-Canadian writer, very famous for Such a Long Journey. It is set in Bombay, in Kodadat building during the emergency. It talks about the events leading up to the emergency. The Prime Minister Indira Gandhi did money laundering to help the Naxalites in Bangladesh. They were the freedom fighters in Bangladesh fighting against Pakistan. She sponsored them. And this money laundering was hidden. There was a man involved in it. In our novel, he is Jimmy Bilimoria. And he is arrested and put to death under some pretext. Gustav Noble, Bilimoria's friend, comes of age politically when he becomes involved in this scam. But luckily he escapes. Nothing happens to him. And it is a very truthful picture of Parsi life, of the politics of the time leading up to the emergency. The next novel, A Fine Balance, is about the emergency. 4 people living in a house their lives are torn apart by the emergency. Dina Dalal, who runs a tailoring shop. Then Manek Kohla, a student staying in her house. And Ishwar Darji and Om Prakash Darji. Family Matters is another novel by Rohinton Mistry, depicting Nariman Vakil, a man suffering from Parkinson's disease, and his family. Tales from Firozhabad, which contains the famous short story Swimming Lessons. It's another major novel. It's a short story collection. Tales from Firozhabad, containing the story Swimming Lessons. There are, of course, many more novelists I have not mentioned. I hope you will do your own reading. Bharati Mukherjee, for example, is an early Indian Canadian writer, the author of Jasmine, Wife, etc. So please do your own reading, do your own research. Canadian literature is a magnificent genre in itself. So happy reading. Bye-bye.